The snow has begun to fall and it's just going to make this harder. You said the 14th and now you're saying the 12th. Your story is changing. Her jewellery, her friends. She has been seen. Where is she? Just tell me. Where is she? I'm saying nothing. The snow has begun to fall and it's just going to make this harder. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Alright, well, if you've been in touch with me about the last story, the three-parter on Anna Delvey, the German faker, thank you very much. There's been I've loved it, such a range of responses from, oh my god, what a psycho, deserves to be in prison, to I'd quite like to go for a coffee with her, which, you know, I get. I think I'm somewhere between a lot of those responses. So, yeah, thanks for getting in touch. I'm just going to do a very quick extra with some shout outs, and then we'll get on with the story. Alright, first of all, never thought I'd be doing this, but, you know, here we are. It's the time we live in. Shout out to the cows. Yes, hello cows. So, Connie Burke, listening to the podcast, got in touch on the Facebook group to say, here's a picture of 3 of your biggest fans, and it's her cows. They were getting uppity listening to other things. She put on a bit of Extraordinary Stories podcast and the cows are loving it. Cheers cows. And it's a hello to Joelle M. Bruner, a new listener to the podcast. She says, I've just discovered the podcast and I'm quite enjoying binging it. Good, I'm glad. Have fun. Hello to Sam Solom on Instagram, who says, Barry, I love your podcast, right? But I was listening to your earlier episodes and I think I heard you wrong. Did you say you were 16 in 1986? I'm just really curious. How old are you now, Sam? A, it's rude to ask someone's age. You shouldn't ever do it. But yeah, I mean, Sam, I'm 21. Yeah, I'm 21 years old. That's how old I am, Sam. So thanks for asking. Glad I could clear that up for you. And lastly, I'm just going to read you an email I got from, oh, forgive me for the surname here, Julian De Handaras. Am I saying that rightly? De some badass or something. Well, I'm just going to call you Julian Badass because I can't say your surname. So, Julian says, Barry, me and my husband, we listen to the podcast all the time. We listen when we make dinner, when we do our household things like we fold laundry, we're cleaning, blah, 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 blah. Right? It's very nice, great, lovely. He says, now, as much as we love it, where my husband gets lost is some of your references. Because he doesn't really understand the world of pop or a lot of popular culture. He's more into sports. He's much more into laddie type things. I understand them all, but he doesn't. Anyway, love the podcast. Just thought I'd say that Richie sometimes gets a little bit lost. Well, Julian Badass. Let me tell you this. You know what? I take that on board. That's good feedback. Because, yes, quite often my references will be Britney Spears, Madonna, Kylie. I get that, right? I get that. So see in this episode, I am going to laddie it up. Oh my god, you're going to be so shocked by the lad vibes that come out of my mouth, right? Because I mean, you know, every podcaster has to get feedback, and I like getting that. All right, so that is the end of Extra Extra. All right, in this episode, I have 2 stories for you, 2 different stories, and they're linked by one thing that I have always been fascinated by, and I'm pretty sure you have too. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. David and Maria Tanshuik are both in their late 30s. Now, David and Maria, they'd always had, and I choose this word carefully, a troubled marriage. Troubled was the word that friends, family, people who knew David and Maria, that was the word that they would use to describe their marriage. Now, David and Maria, they were the first to admit that, yeah, they did have problems. It wasn't always the greatest of marriage. It was sometimes a bit love-hate. It was on, it was off. It could be fiery, passionate when those moments arrived. And when it wasn't passionate, it could be really volatile and it could be really toxic. Think sort of Whitney Houston, Bobby Brown vibes. Think that. Oh my god. I'm not even a minute into the story and I've already fucking done it. Right, let's go sporty. Think of that time when one sports team really didn't like another one. Let's. Right, so they were residents, David and Maria were residents of a small city in Canada called Miramichi. Now, Miramichi is not a massive city. It's got about 18,000 people living in it. And they'd been residents of this city their whole life. So like I said there, they could have their times that were troubled, but they could also have their times that were exceptionally passionate. And people would say, when those moments arrived for them to actually be like a really close, loving, passionate couple, they were to be envied because they just couldn't get enough of each other. They spent all the time together, 24 hours a day, when they were in that zone and they were in love. It's just when they weren't in that, it was the complete opposite. It was dark times. Now, their kind of lifestyle, neither of them worked. They didn't have a car. They had a fairly nice house. And where the income came from for them to have that nice house was David was involved in a bit of drug dealing. So that's kind of where the money came from. Now, were they nice people? Were they good people? Yes, I think you can say that of Maria. Not so sure you can say it of David. Let's just talk about David for a second. I'll start with kind of what David looks like, right? Not gonna lie, he looks a bit scary. He's a little bit scary. So he's covered in tattoos. Now that's nothing to do with the fact that he looks scary. I love tattoos, and I know that so many people listening have loads of tattoos, and I love them. I support them. Get as many as you want. It's David's specific tattoos that add to him looking just a little bit scary. Right across his neck, he has the words, Death Dealer. tattooed. So, like I say, love a tattoo, get them wherever you want on your body. I just think maybe having Death Dealer tattooed across your neck, it's not really sending out a very positive vibe, you know? I mean, why could they not have got a nice unicorn? You know? A rainbow. A lily pad. Something nice like this. Anyway, David's look is very, it's quite intense. He's got that do you know that teardrop tattoo that a lot of people get, and I think they get it a lot in prison if they have killed someone. David has that tattoo on his face. Maria, she's a very pretty brunette who she has a kind of she has a sort of Italian look about her. She's not covered in tattoos or whatever. She's just, yeah, she just looks nice. David and Maria, well, they had met when Maria already had a son, a grown-up son, actually. And he lived with the both of them. So her son was 18 years old. Maria had him quite young. Her and David at this point, when her son was 18, they'd been together a good sort of 10 years. So David had been a big, big part of the raising of Maria's son. Now, something really tragic is going to happen. It's not a massive part of what our story is tonight, but it is a part of what you need to know about Maria. Her son was the absolute apple of her eye. She absolutely adored her son, and they were so, so close. One night he went to a local party at a friend's house. He's 18, few beers, bit of music, crowd of friends, hanging out with people that he went to school with. And at the end of the night, Maria's son, 18 years old, was found dead in the swimming pool. And it was just a tragic accident. He died in the pool at that party, at the house he was at. And Maria was devastated. Of course she would be. She was absolutely devastated. Maria went into a really long, long period of grief. Often she just wouldn't leave the house. It was said that really her and David's home became a shrine to her son. Now, ultimately, the death at the party, it was ruled as an accident. But of course, when you have a dead teenager in a pool, there has to be an investigation. And so a detective called Brian Cummings, who was with the Canadian police, he became the detective in charge of looking into the death of Maria's son. He's a very senior officer. And during the investigation into the death, he starts to visit Maria and David in their home more and more and more. He's seeing them quite a lot as he tries to sort of understand it. And like I say, it is just a tragic accident. Too much beer. He went to a party and, I think, is the official ruling for that death by misadventure? I might be making that up, but that's coming into my head. Don't take that as fact. But I think that's maybe what it is. Anyway, Detective Cummings, during that time, he gets to know Maria really well. She's grieving, she's going through a really hard time, and he comes to the house a lot just to sort of chat with her. Quite often, what he does is, and this is above and beyond what his job is, he brings like sort of care packages to the house. So he'll bring food, he'll bring things that he thinks Maria needs, or that Maria and David need at that time. Now, he feels quite strongly that he's quite protective of Maria and he likes her, this detective. Does he feel the same about David, her husband? No. No, he does not. David has an extensive criminal record. And wait for it. I'm going to tell you what his criminal record is for. The following: robbery, assault, possession of prohibited weapons, and plotting to kill a police informant, a prosecutor, and a judge. Okie dokie. Alright then, so learning a bit more about David. He sounds like a real cute guy. Yeah. So what you need to know in this story is that David was seriously struggling with a drug addiction. He had been on drugs for years. Now he is visiting an addiction counsellor, but it's not really making much of a difference. David is very addicted to drugs. Maria had been addicted to drugs, but she had kicked the addiction and was completely clean, completely sober, had been for years, and she was making it. She was really, really making it her work to get David off the drugs. Maria was so serious about getting her husband clean. I mean, she was as serious as that time that South Africa played England in some sort of cricket game in 1997. Oh, I don't know. I'm just like making like stupid sport things up now. So, Maria, she would follow David. She'd watch where he was going. She monitored who he was talking to. She searched his clothes for drugs, for any evidence of drug use. When he had money, she would sometimes take that money and she would hide it, knowing that it would just be spent on drugs. She would go to the drug dealers that she knew David went to in town, and she would plead with them and say, please don't sell him drugs. I'm trying really hard to get him off of it. Please don't sell him it. But, well, hey, drug dealers are drug dealers, and if there's money to be made, they're going to make it. Sorry, that's a sweeping generalisation of drug dealers. I don't know any drug dealers, so if you are one, I'm very sorry if I've just generalised you absolutely massively. Sorry about that. Anyway, the whole trying to get David off drugs, it's beginning to reach, like, fever. What am I trying to say? Like, fever pitch? Fever dream? Fever stick. You know the point I'm trying to make, right? It's basically, it's getting to boiling point now with it. And Maria finally gives David an ultimatum. She says, look, you need to quit the drugs or the marriage is over. David says, fine. If the marriage is over, the marriage is over. But you will be the one to leave. I won't leave this house. You will be the one to leave. Now that for Maria was devastating because, like I said, she had almost made the house into a shrine of her dead son, and the idea that she would have to move out of their house because he couldn't come off drugs was devastating to her. So this continued, sadly to say, for years, and it was just a constant battle for Maria. And David would go through periods where he would be sober for a while and things would be great and they would be a lovely couple. They would be so passionate and so into each other. And then the minute he went back on drugs, everything would change. So, all of this is leading up to January 2003, when the most awful blizzard is about to hit Canada. It's an absolute beast of a blizzard, and it's about to hit the town that they live in really, really badly. So it's a cold, freezing, blizzard January night when a police station in Miramichi gets a phone call. and it's David. He's calling to report his wife Maria missing. David tells the operator that he and Maria, they had been having marital problems, and they decided that it was best to spend some time apart. He says she went to spend some time with friends in another city, and when she left, she said that she would be in touch with where I could get in contact with her. But now I haven't heard from her. He says 2 weeks have passed, and I'm starting to get really worried. 2 weeks is quite a long time to leave it to make that phone call, isn't it? I mean, if you were really that worried, you would have called before then. You'd have been doing a lot more, but okay, right, fine. Give you the benefit of the doubt right now. He says to the operator, Maria left on the 14th of January. And the person on the phone says, okay, well, how long did she say she would be away for? He says, well, only a few days. She said she'd only be gone a few days and she'd be back. So police send an officer to the house to have a chat with David and just see if they can, get a bit more detail out of him. Now, the police in this town, I keep saying town, it is a city, but it's small enough that police know who David is. Like I told you before, he's well known to police. So as soon as this call comes in, they have got alarm bells ring-a-dinging in their ears. Also, they know Maria. They like Maria. So they have a very, very quick strategy meeting just before the officer is going to go for an initial early conversation with David. And what they decide to do here, and I love this, is they decide to play a tiny little trick on David just to see how he reacts. This is the kind of thing I love. But this is when police work gets sexy. I love it. This is like sexy police work. So, the police officer who arrives at the house, she sits down, has a conversation with David, and she says, so, you said on the phone that Maria left on the 12th of January. And without hesitating, David says, yes. Okay, first mistake. David said on the phone she'd left on the 14th. And when the officer deliberately changed the date to the 12th just to see what his reaction would be, he didn't even notice. Alright, come on mate, first mistake, first huge error, get your fucking dates right. Get your dates right and stick to them. If you're going to call police and say, oh, my wife left on the 14th of January and I haven't seen her for 2 weeks, if 2 hours later a police officer says, also she left on the 12th, if you nod along and agree, yeah, quite right, well, you're just making yourself look like a massive dick, aren't you? So, police are thinking, okay, right, so he's already fallen into the first trap. They're thinking, David, not so bright. Well, I'm not sure. Is David bright? Is he not? Let's see. Let's see as the story develops. Watch this space, said no one since 1996. In the days that followed Maria's disappearance, Detective Cummings, remember the guy who was involved when Maria's son tragically died? He goes to see David just to try and get a few more details out of him. And he will say that when he went to see David, he was very clearly under the influence of drugs. David says, I've been calling around everywhere trying to find her and I can't find her, I don't know where she is. And Detective Cummings says, okay, but who have you been calling? Because you weren't able to really offer any information beforehand about where you thought she'd gone. And he says, David says, I've suddenly remembered she was going to see a friend called Kathy. Right, okay, so here's something to work with. Where does Kathy live? David says, don't know. What's Kathy's last name? David says, don't know. Do you have anything in this house that might have Kathy's phone number, Kathy's address? David says, don't know. So this is useless. I mean, basically what he's done is he's plucked a name out of thin air and said, oh, she's gone to see her friend Kathy. Well, yeah, okay. You didn't know that. You didn't know that before, and now all of a sudden you've got that information? Nah, I'm not believing you. Detective Cummings says, look, I'm going to need you to come down to the police station and actually give us a formal statement here, David. Because we really need to now start a search for Maria. David takes 3 days to go to the police station and make that statement. 3 days. That's how concerned he is. 3 days. In the 3 days that it takes him to get to the police station, police are already out. They're on the streets. They're talking to people. And a really disturbing picture starts to emerge. No one knows any real details. No one knows any facts. But there are dark rumours on the street that something bad has happened to Maria. Detective Cummings is asking his officers, where are you hearing this from? And they say, we're hearing it on the street. I mean, it's literally the word on the street. Do you know what I mean? It's like that is essentially what it is that people are going, something bad has happened to her. So, when David comes in for his interview, initially, police they're very measured in the beginning. Rather than look at David as a suspect, they try to view him as concerned husband. They're just looking at him and going, okay, let's not jump to any conclusions. Let's not say that we think he's guilty. Let's just see, okay? By the end of the day, by the time he's been through an interview, David has, in police mindset, moved from concerned husband to prime suspect. And I'll tell you why. There's a few things in David's stories that just don't check out. For a start, he's not really that coherent. He keeps changing dates. He keeps getting all the facts wrong. He can't remember half the information. He says a few things during his first initial conversation with police that they know they need to go and check out. He says again, oh, she left on the 12th. And police know that's not what you said the first time round. He says her jewellery. Maria was so proud of her collection of jewellery, and she took it with her on her trip. She loved all of her necklaces, her rings, her bracelets, and she had one particular ring that she loved. She loved this so much because it was the last gift that she ever received from her son before he tragically died at that party. He also says, the addiction counsellor that I'm seeing advised us to have this break. She said we needed time apart. So police think, right, okay, let's get to work. Let's look at these things. Right, when did Maria leave? So they've got this date, 12th, possibly the 14th, don't really know. They go round, start doing interviews. They have 6 different witnesses who remember seeing Maria in town at least a week after the date that David has given of her going missing. So, lying. She's been seen. She's been seen by like 6 different people in town. Number 2, the jewellery. He says she took it with her. Detective Cummings does not believe this for 1 second, so he visits the local pawnbrokers only to learn that Maria's jewellery had been brought in and had been pawned by David. Number 3, they go to the addiction counsellor and they say, what advice did you actually give to the couple? And the addiction counsellor says, I told them that they needed to spend at least 2 hours a day apart. I did not advise that they spend any great length of time. So David's story is just beginning to fall apart. But all of that is all well and good. Here's David's biggest mistake he could make. During that interview with police, he keeps referring to Maria in the past tense. So he keeps saying, Maria was the kind of person. Maria would do such and such. Now, the minute you start referring to someone in the past tense, you know they're dead. And that for police is the biggest fuck off red flag. They're like, right, okay, alright, now we know. We can't prove it, but we know it. The next big question for police is, and of course it is a big question, why wait 2 weeks? Why would David wait 2 weeks to report her missing? So then the police are kind of like, they're like wandering up and down. I've just got this image of my head of them all just like wandering up and down the police station. They're scratching their heads and they're going, why did he wait 2 weeks to report it? What was he doing in those 2 weeks? What was it? And then all of a sudden, it hits one of the police officers. The night that David made the phone call to report that Maria had not come home was the day that the blizzard started. And police go, right, we're getting closer. This is what it is. He has waited until there has been a snowfall to cover up whatever it is that he has done. To cover up his tracks, to cover up potentially where he might have put her body. That's why he waited 2 weeks. Now, as for a motive, right, this is a little bit tricky. Okay, it's a little bit of a sidestep here in the story, but not too much of a sidestep. And I do actually think it gives us quite good sort of context to Maria and David. Police are thinking, why did they not just separate? Like, if it was really that bad, like, why would David have done something to Maria to make her disappear? Or why did she just not leave? Like, what's the story there? And they go, and when they're interviewing people, they talk to Maria's very best friend, and she tells them something that they didn't actually know. And it's that 2 years prior to her disappearing, David had a short stint in prison, in the jail, for, I can't remember what the crime was, but he was in for a short stint in prison. And during that time, Maria had an affair. Okay? Not great that she had an affair. I'm not forgiving that. I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just saying that it happened, right? It was brief and it was over. Now, when David got out of his short stint in prison, Maria told David about the affair. You know, thinking that was probably the best thing she could do as his wife in that situation. She could admit that, yeah, okay, she had a brief affair with someone while he was in prison. The man that she had the affair with suddenly vanished from the streets of Miramachi. Gone. Now, Maria and David, they never talked about it. They never discussed this man suddenly vanishing. But Maria would confide to her best friend, I know David did something bad. I know that he was so angry about me having an affair. He didn't take it out on me. He took it out on this guy. And now this guy is gone. So, with that in mind, now that police have that information, it starts to make a bit more sense. Because if they'd just separated, if David had just walked away from Maria because he was sick of her going on about getting off the drugs, she still had that information. And as long as Maria was alive, that was always going to hang over David, that she would be able to put those things together and at any point, anywhere in the future, go to police. So from the very, very minute, from the very second that David becomes their suspect, the investigation, it proceeds with two major goals. Number one, get enough evidence to arrest David. Second, and not second in a what do I mean? Not second in a less important way, not by any means. But second is find Maria, dead or alive. So now that they have this sort of growing picture of it, they know that her jewellery's been pawned. They know that she was seen after the date that David said she was supposedly away, someone else visiting her friend. Police just think enough is enough. They arrest David on suspicion of murder. And the first place that they want to check is the basement of the home. I think here, right, I genuinely think police at this moment thought that they were going to find her in the basement. I do. I really believe that. They kind of were like so focused on his basement, and it's not really hard to understand why. His basement was basically a sort of shrine to satanic practices, essentially. It was covered in different satanic posters. David had an altar in this basement space that he had, that was just his. It was for no one else. And so police can't wait to get in there. They're like, let's get down to that basement. This is where we're gonna find Maria. And they don't. I know it's quite popular now to have a sort of is it a man cave, people call it? I feel like I hear this term on I feel like I hear it on TV, but I don't really know what it means. Is it just a a basement for men? Sounds, well, I was going to say sounds dodgy, but I don't know. In some ways, it might be quite nice. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to think if I had a man basement, what it would look like. Disco lights, wind machine, dry ice. Permanent karaoke machine. And that's exactly what I've just worked it out. That's exactly what I would do with my man cave. I would literally have disco lights, boom, 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 flashing, me on the karaoke. Turn around, every now and then. Oh, I can see it right now. I can see it happening. Anyway, that unfortunately is not what David's basement looked like. And so police, when they don't find any evidence of Maria where they think they're going to find it, they have to really, really think hard now. Okay, what can they do? Because the problem here is, right, this is the real issue. You can't keep David forever. You can't keep him just because they suspect that he's guilty. Unless they've got something to work with, they can't really just keep someone. So they have to really come up with something. Now this is where the real game begins to find Maria. And this is where David shows just what an absolute prick he is. Excuse my language. He shows here what an absolute douchebag of a man he is. He is king of the douchebag. He should have a crown that says King Douchebag at this point. Because what he does next is absolutely just rubbish for police. It's just terrible. It's just like, fuck off, mate. A witness who wants to remain anonymous in the story, and that's absolutely fine, comes forward to tell police that they've seen David in and around some woods not too far from their house, making mysterious late night trips in and out of the woods. Now, we're not talking here about a small wooded area. We're talking about a large forest area that covers miles of ground. It is thick with trees. So police, of course, they're going to assume at this point David has killed Maria, and this is where he is hiding her body. But if that's the case, Maria's body could be anywhere in that vast wooded area. So police start watching David, and it doesn't really take David too long to become aware of this. And this is where he will really show what a dickhead he is. He starts to play with police. He starts choosing really odd times to go into the woods. Sometimes he goes into the woods and he takes tools with him. So he's got like a hammer sometimes under his arm as he goes in. Now he knows police are watching him. The whole thing is a who's watching who, we all know the game. But David, you see, he knew these woods very, very well. So when he went into them, he could easily disappear from police sight quickly because he knew exactly where he was going. Police were stationed to watch the woods from towers high above. Some nights, police officers were sitting there and it was like minus 20 degrees as this blizzard was happening. And they just had to sit there and watch David walk in to the woods, walk about, and then they would lose sight of him because essentially he would take these little twists and turns into bits where they couldn't quite find him. He would get out of police sight really quickly. He's just making police stay up all night for no fucking reason other than being a dick. But police, what they won't do is they will not let go of the certainty that this is where Maria is. She's somewhere in these woods. David, and I mean this I think is a really good indication of just how on the edge, I'm on the edge of glory. I think this just shows how on the edge David really, really is. He starts to get frustrated that police are watching him so much. He starts to say things like, I can't believe my friends, the police, are watching me all the time. Your friends? I don't think they're your friends, mate. I think something's a bit loose in your brain if you think that these are your friends, because they are not. They are not your friends. But David then starts to threaten something very, very serious. Something that the police do not want. David starts talking around town and saying if the police don't back off watching my every move, I'm coming after their families. It's not a huge place that they live in. Finding the families will not be hard. And also, police know David has a temper. He's a man on drugs. He's also, at this moment, a man that is essentially probably guilty of something. He knows police are zeroing in on him. And so his retaliation is, I'm coming after their families. And this, I just find this awful. But this is what police are forced to do. For a full 6 weeks. The families of any police involved in the search for Maria have to have extra alarms installed in their homes. The wives of male officers are made to wear panic buttons 24 hours a day. Any children at all attached to the families of the officers are escorted door to door wherever they go and cannot be let to just go inside a building without someone checking that they're securely inside. For 6 weeks, these police officers, they can't have casual friends pop over. They can't go out to restaurants. They can't live their lives, basically, because David has backed them into a corner where he's saying, if you don't back off in the search for Maria, I'm coming for your families. I just think that's fucking awful. I cannot believe that one man can terrorise a police force. Like, what? What the actual fuck? What's that? But, during all of this, police are determined. He can do all of this, but it doesn't stop them searching the wooded area to try and find where they're convinced Maria is. Then police are going to learn a very troubling piece of information. They discover that David has been going to the downtown, where all the bad boys and the bad girls hang out, and he's been going there to try and buy a gun. Oh, God. Well, that's not good news. So, when they learn that David is on the hunt to buy a gun, they act quickly, and I think what they do here is pretty damn good. Now, they know a lot of the sort of douchebaggeries that David hangs around with. And so what they do is, one of the friends that he kind of hangs around with a lot of the time, they steal his car. Police actually steal his friend's car, and they install a wire into it very quickly, in the hope that David will be in this car and that police can hear him talking about the disappearance of Maria, or talking about what he might have done, or talking about future plans or something. They just want a wire in this car. So, I mean, essentially, what happens here is one of David's mates is in a bar one night. He doesn't realise it, but his car is taken by police. A wire is put into it really quickly, and then it's parked like 3 or 4 streets away. So he just thinks the car's been stolen and driven a little bit away, but he gets the car back. I mean, it's a bit weird, but I can kind of see what police are doing here. Yeah, that would be weird if that was your car. This poor Canadian man, well, I say poor Canadian man, but this Canadian guy must have been like, oh, I don't know, what does a Canadian sound like? Ooh, my car, no, that's no. Oh, my car's been stolen. That's not Canadian. Let me just think. Let me just go into myself. Oh, my car's been. That's Australian. Oh, my car has been stolen. No, I can't. Clearly, I cannot do a Canadian accent, right? I don't know what that is. I do know what. Oh, my car has been stolen. Oh, my God, now it sounds like a porn star. Oh, my car has been stolen. Anyway, so whatever has happened there, the car has been moved, and now police are like, great, we've got a bit of a wire here. We can maybe pick up on some David conversations. And they're listening, and they're listening. And what they hear through that wire is David is going to the other side of town to pick up a gun. And he's going now. So police, they jump into their cars. They're going to chase him, but they have to pause and they have to think. And this is why. If they pull David over and say, we know that you are off to buy a gun right now, then the whole fact that they've put a wire in that car, that's completely blown open. And they can't find any more information. But if they give him enough time to actually go and buy a gun, then they can arrest him. They can arrest him for having a weapon. And that's when they can pull him in and they can properly interrogate him about Maria. So, police pull the car over. It's a high-risk move, but they do it. And they find that David is in the back of his friend's car with a sawn-off rifle and a homemade abduction kit. Fucking hell. This is less than a mile from Detective Cummings' house. Detective Cummings realises at this point that if they hadn't intervened, David was on his way to hurt somebody in his family. So they bring David in. At the police station, they interview him for 11 hours. 11 long hours. But he will not give up any information about Maria. They talk about the woods. He denies it. He says, yeah, I go in and out of those woods. Doesn't mean there's anything dodgy. Doesn't mean that if anything has happened to Maria, that's where she is. And they can't get David on a murder charge or any of that because they don't have a body. They're certain that he's killed her, he's put her in the woods, but they cannot find the body. However, the fact that he had a weapon, he was on drugs in a car, and had a home abduction kit means that they can take him to court and David gets sentenced to 2 years in prison. Now, on the one hand, it's quite good that they've been able to do that because at least they know where he is and they can go and they can talk to him. But on the other hand, him being out and then being able to have surveillance on him might slightly have been more beneficial for police because they might have actually waited to the point where he slipped up slightly or he did something that gave them an indication of where Maria might be. The real feeling for police here is the worry that it's now been months. It's been months of searching these woods, and the same team of detectives have been so dedicated to this case. And there's a creeping feeling in these detectives that they just might never find Maria's body. I wonder, when I was sort of going through this story, stopped and wondered if at any point they considered that actually that's not where she was. Were they perhaps looking in the wrong direction? But I'm assuming they must have done really good work to have determined that no, they were clear this is where she was. So there's no murder weapon and there's no body. But one of those things is about to change. Yes, sorry, it is about to change. Maria's family and extended family were a massive part of the search for Maria. So sometimes when police had been searching for days and hours and had come away from it, they would take over the search of the woods. They would do whatever they could in the situation to help try and find Maria. That's really what they wanted. So Maria's brother-in-law was one night out driving nearby the woods. Edmund Carroll. Now Edmund gets described as a simple man, a born-again Christian, a very sane, very sorted man. But something happens to Edmund. And you know what? This bit of the story is weird. Right, it is weird. But there's no judging here. There's no judging. There's no like... I'm not doubting this for a second and I'm not believing him. Edmund was out driving, looking round. Any signs of Maria anywhere? No. He was nearby the woods. And down a dirt track He's driving and he passes by a old truck lying by the side of the road. Completely disused. It's just been abandoned at the side of the road. And he drives by it. And he sort of clocks it. He sees it. He drives on. Now, a voice spoke to him at this point. And the voice said, "Go back. Go back and search." He said that the voice spoke the words, "The gun, the gun." He was never the kind of man who went, "Oh, I hear voices all the time." So for him, this was a totally bizarre experience. He was just out on the routine search for Maria. And he hears that voice, "Go back, the gun." So he goes back. He finds that truck that's been abandoned down that dirt road. He starts searching around the car. And inside of it, he finds a gun wrapped in fabric. And it's been shoved under the driver's seat and left there. So he pulls the gun out. He looks at it. He quickly wraps it back up. And straight away he calls police. Police arrive and they take the gun into the station. Now, for whatever reason, police are convinced this is what has killed Maria. Why they never found that truck that was down that dirt road, I don't know. It's never been answered. Police can never say why they never ever found that truck. They'd passed that road so many times, they just had never seen this truck. Fine, that happens. That voice that Edmund heard in his head that told him to go back, well, who knows? Who knows what that was? But it was something. It was definitely something. Police believed if Maria was dead, this was the weapon that killed her. Maria was dead. Maria was indeed buried in those woods. The woods that police had been searching for months. And in a minute, I'm going to talk about how Maria was discovered. Let's pause on Maria and we'll take a bit of a gear change. We're going to go to Texas, onto a family in Texas. This story isn't connected to Maria and to David, but it is in the same world of what I want to talk about in this episode. I'm going to say this. This is awfully tough listening, what I'm about to talk about. So beware, it's hard. In 2016, Wesley and Cindy Matthews, living in Texas, adopted a baby daughter from India. So the couple, Wesley and Cindy, they couldn't have their own kids, so they decided to adopt. And they adopted a 2-year-old who had been abandoned and had been left in an orphanage in India. They brought her to Texas. They gave her a life. Now, the photographs of her are just, they're so gorgeous. She's just like this happy, smiling, brilliant 2-year-old. She's just so happy. She's got, there's loads of photos of like her parents hugging her and just like throwing her up in the air. It's just, it's absolutely gorgeous. Obviously, kids are hard work, right? They're not. It's not all fun pictures and joy. It's not. It can't be all the time. Just ask my family, who my family must have been driven crazy by me. Must have been like, oh my god, where's 2-year-old Barry? Oh, there he is. He's in a bin. Brilliant. Great. He's in a bin again. Excellent. Where's Barry? Oh, he's off making a song and dance routine that we're going to have to watch for the next 5 hours. So yeah, it's not all fun. It's not all fun and games, but, you know, there's lots of lovely photos of this adopted child just looking so happy with her new parents in Texas. But then there is a call to police in 2017 in the middle of the night. And that's going to change all of that happiness. Wesley Matthews calls police to report his 3-year-old daughter missing. Police ask, "What's happened?" And he explains that he was trying to feed her milk in the night, and she was being difficult. She was being exceptionally difficult. And so to punish her, he put her outside in the middle of the night. He stood her by the tree in the family garden, and he left her there to calm down. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you actually having a fucking laugh? A 3-year-old? You put them outside? He says to police, "I returned after 15 minutes and she was gone. She just wasn't there." So now police have a missing 3-year-old on their hands, and the search begins. And it's big. Of course it's big. It's huge. Wesley and his wife Cindy, they're questioned repeatedly. Why would you do that? Just because she was misbehaving? Why the hell would you put her outside? Have you done this before? Is this something that happens in the family? They say no, not before. But that night she was being particularly difficult and just would not drink her milk. Ultimately, what it comes down to is she's missing. There's no sign of her anywhere. Now, we know how quickly the press will jump on a missing child. I mean, we all lived through Madeleine McCann. Pictures of Sharon are all over the news and the papers and flyers within 24 hours of her going missing. 4,000 people in that town in Texas came out to search on foot for this missing 3-year-old. Obviously, when something like that happens, there's always going to be a lot of negativity, and so a lot of blame and a lot of hatred is thrown towards specifically the dad, also both parents, about how you treat children. Why the hell would you do that? What's going on here? But he sticks to his story. He says, "I put her out under the tree and then she vanished." 2 weeks pass and the press around it only gets bigger and bigger. Sharon becomes national news. It becomes huge. Wesley and his wife Cindy, they become absolute figures of hatred at this point. So police, they decide that they have to charge Wesley with willful neglect of a child, and that he will have to appear in court. Cindy, the mother, she's also charged with the same thing. Wesley seems to really be the focus of the story. Cindy, the mother, it's weird. It's like she's there, she's a part of it. Yes, everyone is very aware that she is the mother of the child. But I think because it's Wesley who made the phone call to police, and, you know, he just becomes the figure. He becomes the figurehead of this whole story. They do. I mean, they just become absolute vilified. We've seen it time and time again. We see it all the time, and I I seriously struggle to say her name without wanting to spit in my own face and punch myself. But Casey Anthony, it's the same thing. Very quickly becomes this huge known figure. So, 3 weeks pass, and there is no sign of Sharon. The 3-year-old has just disappeared. Now, the most that's going to happen really for the Matthews parents is they're going to have a short stint in jail for negligence towards their daughter, but that's about it. And then Sharon, if she's never found, she's just never found. She's gone. She's just another missing child. But just like David in the first story, what the Matthews didn't count on was one very, very important thing, and it's the thing that links these two stories. Something I'm so passionate about. Our four-legged friends. Dogs. The doggos of the world. Those fan-fucking-tastic beasts who we should never, ever underestimate. Back to David and Maria. For months, police had searched those woods. And remember Detective Cummings, the man who liked Maria, the man who felt protective of Maria. Well, he went to his boss and he said, look, here's the situation. My officers are exhausted searching these woods, and I want a dog. I want a cadaver dog involved in this. Now, here's the thing. I didn't realise this, but it is such a hoopla. It is such an expensive situation if you want a dog involved in your investigation. But he pushed for it. And he got it. Alex, the 8-year-old German Shepherd, was given the scent of Maria, and he was sent into those woods to look for her body. Within 35 minutes, he was in a part of the woods, had already been examined by detectives, but he was there and he was barking his head off. He wouldn't move away from this spot. And when police cleared the snow, they found the grave in which Maria lay. She had been shot 3 times. Once behind her ear, once in the eye, and once at the back of her head. David, tired of his wife telling him to get off drugs, he had brought her into these woods, shot her 3 times, and buried her. And then he had waited for snow to fall in the hope that her body would never be found. David thought he was playing a really clever game, but not clever enough for a dog. I think this is nice in a way. I mean, if you can call it nice, it's not nice, but after Alex the dog had taken just half an hour to find Maria's body, that police had now spent almost a year searching for. Rather than move her straight away, what they did was they called all of the officers who had been tirelessly searching for her, and they waited. They waited until each officer who was a part of the search for Maria was around her grave in the woods, and they let the officers carry Maria's body out of the woods together. Detective Cummings didn't want Maria's body to be taken in an ambulance to the hospital, and so he ordered a hearse for Maria to go in. And so each of those officers, even though it was a dog who found the body in the end, they were each there to play a part in bringing Maria's body out of the woods. Wesley and Cindy Matthews were under the impression that with their 3-year-old daughter missing, they would never be charged, because if there's no body, there's no crime. Enter a German Shepherd who's about to sort this whole thing out. A German Shepherd named Buddy was given the scent of Sharon, and he was let loose. Now, what Buddy the dog started doing was running away from where police had been searching for Sharon, almost in a completely different direction. Really, the dog was heading towards the next town. And if that was any other dog, if that was any dog, you'd be thinking, oh my god, where's that dog going? What's that stupid dog all about? No, not this dog. Buddy found himself by a small river, a good few miles away from where police had been searching, and he was barking at a culvert. I think that's how you say it. A culvert. Do you know, if it doesn't sound familiar to you, I had to look it up. You know, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You know that sort of plastic pipe that, like, sometimes you see it like over a river, sometimes it's in a way like runs through it, or sometimes it's underneath it. You know, the kind of plastic tubing that's like a pipe, essentially, is what it is. Well, Buddy was barking and barking and barking at this pipe. He's going nuts, going completely nuts. Police, they trust Buddy. They look inside this pipe and they discover the dead body of 3-year-old Sharon Matthews. Her body was decomposing and was being eaten by maggots. On the day that they discovered her body, Wesley Matthews, her father, walked in to a police station to tell the truth. And the truth was this: he had been feeding Sharon her milk at 3 a.m. in the morning. She wasn't drinking it, and in his words, he was a little forceful. That's his actual own words. A little forceful in attempting to get her to drink the milk, and she began to choke. She began to choke, and he couldn't help her in that moment. She died, and neither him nor his wife were able to resuscitate her, and so they took her body and they hid her inside of that pipe miles away from their home before reporting her missing. And if police had not used Buddy, the cadaver dog, Sharon's body might never have been discovered. And those parents could continue to tell the world that she had just gone missing. David is serving a life sentence for Maria's death, and I hope he rots in hell. Wesley Matthews is serving life in prison for the death of his 3-year-old daughter. And all because they were discovered by dogs. Both men could be in very, very, very different situations if it wasn't for our 4-legged friends. Okay, I'm just going to end by telling you a story that, yeah, I just think on this subject, it's just really interesting. I'm going to tell you about Buster, okay? So, Buster. Buster is a black lab, and when Buster is a puppy, he shows a really, really keen sense of smell. And his owner thinks, he's got good sense of smell. He's great, like sniffing stuff out. He's really, really good at it. I'm sure those of you who are listening who've got dogs will be like, yeah, dogs are very, very good at sniffing stuff out. But I'm talking like, this was like exceptional levels of skill. Do you ever have those, like, you know those things, oh god, I bought Alfie one once. A Kong, they're called, right? It's like a little plastic rubber thing, and you put things in it, and you hide it in the house, and the dog is meant to, like, well, I think the whole idea is, the dog's meant to be like, there's the scent of something that I might want to eat. It's going to take me 20 minutes to find it. Most dogs find it like that, to be honest. I mean, it was a complete waste of time. I was filling it with peanut butter, right? And all this kind of, like, I was putting peanut butter, jam, I was putting loads of stuff in it, hiding it under the couch. Literally, Alfie was finding it within about 3 seconds. I was like, well, there's literally much fun in this, is there? I may as well just give him the peanut butter and jam if he's finding it that quickly. Anyway, right, so back to Buddy. So his owner, Paul, starts thinking, this is one really special dog I've got in my hands here. So he gets him trained as a sniffer dog. Love a sniffer dog. Bloody love a sniffer dog. See, when you see them at the airport and they're all like, hey, look at me, I'm a sniffer dog. And they're just like walking about an airport looking like really cool. Do you know what I almost wish? I wish they had a uniform. Yeah, I wish they had like a hat. I wish they had like a wee hat that was like, I'm a police dog. Don't fuck with me. Right? Don't fuck with me, bitches. Don't give me no ear rubs. Don't give me no belly rubs. I'm a police dog. That's what I kind of want them to. That's kind of what, yeah. Anyway, so Buster spends a long time as a sniffer dog, busting all the drugs at the airport, and people start saying to Paul, you know, I think your dog's better than this. I think your dog's better than a sniffer dog. I think you should actually maybe think about your dog becoming a cadaver dog. And he's a bit like, right, okay, well, I mean, everyone's saying it, so, okay, right, fine. So he gets Buster trained as a cadaver dog. And once he starts going out there and doing his work, he really shows absolutely massive skill. And his skill is, he can find bodies and remains that have been missing for like 50 or 60 years. There's no limit to what Buster can actually find. It's incredible. He'll find like the remains of someone from years ago. Not talking like recent murders. We're talking like, so long ago. And then he earns this nickname, and I bloody love this, right? Buster earns the nickname Sherlock Bones. How good is Sherlock Bones as a nickname? I think that's brilliant. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And it means something. I mean, it means something because he is actually like a detective dog. It's not the same as like, you know, I've got Alfie registered as Lord Alfred, you know, but he's not a lord, he's just lordy in his behaviour. It doesn't mean he is an actual lord. Anyway, so Buster, he becomes hugely in demand. And Paul now has to start like flying around the world with Buster. They're going to Europe, they're going to Australia, they're going to China to solve cases and find bodies. And all the time he takes with him this one little thing that Buster loves, and it's this little blue bone, a little blue rubber bone. He's had it since he was a puppy, and he's absolutely obsessed with it. Now he goes and he does some amazing work. A couple of really quick examples are, in the Second World War, a family in America, they said goodbye to their 18-year-old son, who went off to be a pilot, fighting in the US Army, and he never returned. They never, ever, ever found any trace of him anywhere. Until Buster gets on the scene. And Buster manages to, it's unbelievable, but through like 10 layers of concrete, this dog sniffs out that there is something buried at the bottom of that. And when they dig it up, they find that it is the missing remains of this 18-year-old who was gone. And now his family are finally able to put him to rest. In California, a 14-year-old boy goes to a disco one night, leaves his family, says, I'm off, I'm out to the disco, I'll be home before midnight. That boy never returns. And his story, his going missing, is one of the strangest missing persons cases that's never been solved. So, about 5 years ago, Buster gets brought in to that town, sniffs about, and the place that Buster goes to is the local well. And he stands at that well and he barks, and he barks, and he barks. And locals start saying, he's telling us that's where the body of this missing 14-year-old is. And so the family go to the local police chief and they say, look, can we please search the well? Can we drag the well? And the police chief says, look, your son went missing so many years ago. I cannot release the funds for a further search. There's too much going on. There's too much other police work going on. I can't do it. And to this day, there's still, and I think this is great, there's still people in that town trying to raise money to basically drag that well, because they say, he's told us, Buster is telling us, if we want the body of that 14-year-old who's never been found, that's where he's going to be. Buster has found the bodies of over 200 people across the world. Now at age 9, Buster developed cancer and he had to have his back left leg amputated. Did it stop him? Did it fuck? 3 weeks after his surgery, Sherlock Bones was back on the case. His owner Paul says something really interesting here. He's like, what's sort of strange about it is, when he lost his leg, people would meet Paul, the owner, and say, oh God, I'm really sorry about your dog. I'm really sorry you've got a disabled dog. And he would say, well, don't be sorry. Like, it's not slowing him down. And also, he doesn't know he's disabled. He's just got 3 legs and doing what he's always been doing. So don't feel sorry for him. Don't pity him. Do you know what I mean? Because it is that way, isn't it? If you see like a three-legged dog or whatever, you always go, oh, what an absolute shame. But see, when you look at them, fuck hell, they're just doing what they always do. They're just living life. They don't know they've got a disability. Buster has uncovered from sites bodies from both the First World War and the Second World War that have never been discovered. How many years on from those wars are we? And he's still finding those bodies. I mean, that is one special dog. Paul sadly had to put this on his Facebook in 2016. Tonight, Buster came looking for his blue bone, and I gave it to him. He took himself away. About an hour later, I went out to play with the tyre, which is Buster's favourite thing. I threw the tyre, he ran for it, and as he ran, his legs went out from under him, and he collapsed on his right side. His tongue was hanging out his mouth, and he was barely breathing. I petted him as a cry of anguish came from deep inside, and then it was over. He was dead. Buster died doing what he loved. Playing. Chasing. We will never really know the full effects of the things that Buster found in this world. The bodies that he uncovered. But Paul ends by saying, never underestimate a dog's power. And so between David, Maria, Sharon and Buster, so ends the story. Alright then, there you go. Well, that's that. That's those stories done. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed listening. Yeah. What to say? What to talk about? Okay, yes, please keep. That was quite a nice noise I made. Please. Oh my god, I could be like in an opera. The Phantom of the Opera is dead. Oh my god, I'm so good. Please keep your reviews coming for the podcast. I know I bang on about it all the time and it's like, oh my god, shut up. If you're not talking about this, you're talking about the fucking Facebook group. I know I go on about these things all the time, right? But no idea how much the reviews really help. It's bringing new listeners all the time. It's helping me in lots of other ways as well. Like, if there's lots of people contacting me now about different things that can help me to grow the podcast. Help me make the podcast bigger and better and do things with it. And that's just, it purely is because of reviews. So, if you can leave me a review, that would be bloody lovely. Yeah, really love you to join the Facebook group. Be lovely to have you there. It's growing all the time. What a community. What a smashing group of people. Absolutely fabulous. But if you're not on Facebook, and I get that not everyone is, there's Instagram, there's Twitter. I'm always hanging about those two platforms, so you can get me there. Yeah. As always, just get in touch. Oh, I've just realised how absolutely unladdie I have been in this. Alright, okay, let me try and do something right. Lads, get some beer. Yeah, watch some porn. No, right. No, it's not for me. I've tried it. It's not for me. Right, being laddie's not my. It's not my way forward in life. I'm really way more comfortable with a Bette Midler or Beyonce reference. So that's how it's going to be. Okay. I hope the cows enjoyed this episode. Until I speak to you soon. Okay. Goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on. Let's do it. Let's get it over.